The Team Supreme podcast is brought to you by the voices of Jason Schomer and Yashar Coffee and produced by Matt Sewell, who is me. I am Matt Sewell. If you got a moment, leave a comment about the podcast or give us a rating or share with your friends. Enjoy.
I'm from New Jersey. He's from Iran. It's good enough for a podcast. We're Team Supreme. Summers were like the greatest for me. I mean, waiting for the summer to arrive, the actual moment the summer arrived. I don't. This is in New Jersey, obviously. I don't know what it was like over there, but
very different.
I'm sure, and I'm
the
sure
the anticipation for summer was overwhelming.
You started to maybe I'd say a month out from summer. It was getting close, and it was life was about to change for the better for 3 months, and it always kicked off for me. I lived in these two twin buildings that had it was like apartment buildings, and in between there was a pool. We had a pool deck for both buildings to share, and it was when the winter it would be drained because it would get too cold, it would freeze. So when that water started shooting out by it was almost like a faucet.
Right.
It took days for that thing to fill up. But you would watch it. I'd watch it from my window. My window was right over the pool, and I'd look down and just see that thing slowly. Oh man,
Yeah.
It's coming. Summer's coming, and school's almost over. Oh man. And for you, it was not like that. I'm looking at your face, and I could tell.
No, it was very different. Like, of course, summer was always appreciated because you wouldn't go to school.
Right.
But my main entertainment was I had this uncle, this gentleman who was married to my aunt, but he was like my own uncle. And he had this very crazy, like, twisted stories about things that were going on in the world. And everybody avoided that guy with the exception of me because I was a kid. I really wanted to laugh. And I would get permission to go to bed an hour past my bedtime. So he would come to our place and he was always drunk. So I would like really utilize those 2 to 3 hours before going to bed to like sit around him and like formulate questions, and he would give the weirdest, like most fucked up answers on the planet. Especially he made fun of this one kid who was one of the neighbors' kids who had schizophrenia, and he would always impersonate him. And I right now in retrospect I can see how bad and cruel it was, but as a child I was laughing hysterically.
I'm sure.
Just looking at his face, like, making the Zoolanders like lips, like making a cross eyes, and just talking about that kid. So that was one. But also, there were swimming classes that I used to go to, but I didn't really like them. I just wanted to go home and play like Atari or play with the neighborhood kids. We would play soccer on the street. We had these like little plastic balls and a lot of like that. But it wasn't like, such an amazing experience.
Right.
It was like, we're not going to school, so it's cool.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any? There was, besides classes, were there any? Was there camps? Did the camps exist?
At the time, like a generation prior to me, yes, the camps existed. Things were really good, but I was at that age to go to camps right after the Iranian Revolution. So they sort of like banned everything. There were camps and all, but they were like ideologically motivated or designed.
Right.
And my parents like didn't even like want me to go close to these places.
Yeah.
Of course, granted, my dad used to think everybody is a pedophile too.
Right.
So just a swimming class and like somebody is like, supervising the children was like very important. But otherwise, camps and all, like according to my dad, everybody out there was a pedophile, was a pervert. So
And camp's the worst place to be in
it's
for one of those people.
According to my dad, like that's the end of the story.
Did you go to like day camps? Or?
I didn't. When I was elementary school, my summers were my summers. But when I moved to Florida, every summer I would fly back to spend the summer in upstate New York with my father and my grandmother.
Gotcha.
But even that was exciting. You know?
Yeah, sure.
It was always interesting too, the culture. I lived in Orlando, and I'd go back, and that summer, whatever I was into and all the kids around me were into, like, a year or two previous, they were just catching up. So I remember I'd go back one of my first summers when I was 6th or 7th grade. I brought a skateboard. I got big into skateboarding in middle school. No one in the entire town in the school skateboarded at all. They're like, what do you... I was like the only kid with a fucking skateboard.
Did your stock go up, or was it more like this is a weird dude with
like
a board?
2 years later, I kept bringing my skateboard, and then all of a supsudden there was another handful of skateboarder kids, and then one kid built a ramp and all this stuff. And by the time I was done with skateboarding, it was full blast in upstate New York. But it was like that with a lot of stuff, fashion.
Yeah.
You know.
So it would
But it
just
was-
start in Florida and move its way up, basically.
Well, it would start somewhere else and
Yeah.
move its way up because we all know that Florida is not really on the cutting edge of
Right.
fashion and culture.
They just get it faster.
They just got it faster
Right.
somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved. I just wanted to be out of school. I just wanted to get the hell.
Obviously.
And I'm starting to see it in my son now. Like, he is not thrilled about going to school. I hated going to school. And then there was people like that loved school.
Yeah.
They were excited to go back to school, and that was not me.
Yeah.
And so when it was time, summertime was coming, it was approaching. It was a lot of anticipation, and that the feeling of that last day was just you couldn't beat it.
Yeah.
You were just like, this is great. This is so great.
Right. My
You know?
my parents put me directly into day camp every summer. Like I remember, I remember just immediately going into a day the
Right.
town camp, and which was essentially
School.
this one. The one I mean in New Jersey, it was like a field. It was like a big giant field that they just dropped all the kids off, and we would sit on the baseball field diamond or in the dugouts and play like Connect Four and and just sit in the shadiest parts to not be baking in the sun. And then at a certain time, they would ship us. They would line up and just all walk like 2 or 3 blocks to a local like wading pool, and we would. Basically bathe like birds, just trying to flap ourselves to get wet, and then wait for an ice cream truck to come because that was the highlight of the day. And we would all have our money and buy as much ice cream as we could, eat ice cream, walk back to the camp to like wait for our parents to pick us up. And that was camp every day. But the thing about this camp though, that made that all worth it, because if that was camp, there's no doubt I would have been talking some shit about it to my parents and begging to be out of it. The one thing though that kept me there was that every week, that one of the days of the week was a trip just to a destination, like bowling, or we're going to the roller skating rink, something really cool.
Yeah.
All right, and that was
And you all wear the same colored T-shirt.
yes,
You're all there.
exactly. I mean, the camp almost felt like it existed for that one day a week, and the
Right.
rest of the time was here's how we're gonna kill the time waiting till the next trip. And but the craziest thing was that once a month for the 3 months, it was like 3 times we would go to a water park called Action Park, which I know there's a documentary about it on YouTube. You could look it up. It was in Vernon, New Jersey, Action Park. I believe Johnny Knoxville did a movie about it because he grew up going to that park too. The backstory of this water park, it is notoriously known to be, it's not open anymore, it doesn't exist. The most corrupt, unsupervised, unregulated water park in the history of water parks or any amusement park. Somehow it was built by engineers that weren't even designed for safety, and there was everything was just, and like I don't know the entire backstory on how or why it was built or why it became so unsafe. I just know from living the experiences at the actual park as a young kid. I mean, we'd bus in and they would just drop you off and be like, you meet here at 3:00, guys. And that's it. You had a Ziploc bag of money to not get wet and to buy lunch. And that was it. And you just went off to wherever you wanted. And there was not dangerous, but like adult-sized water slides there. There was the most horrific wave pool I've ever experienced in my life. There was bungee jumping off a crane no waivers being signed. You
my
walk up
God.
to it like it's a regular ride. You climb up the thing. They put on a vest.
Did you
they
do it?
put the bungee cord. I did it like 100 times.
Wow.
Right? I jumped off this crane backwards, upside down. Like you just walk up to the end as a teenager sitting at the end saying, at the count of 3, you jump. 1, 2, 3. And you jump. And there's a big giant puffed up mattress at the bottom that they lower you into. You roll off. Someone takes your vest. You get back in line and do it again. I don't remember seeing an adult at the bungee jump station at this place. And that was what we would go once a month for 3 months. That was the best part of that camp.
Anyone get injured or?
Oh, kids got injured all the time. If you look at this documentary, like you're talking about, like my friends or in general.
Your friends, like when you were going.
Oh yeah, I remember the first time I went. My closest friend that went to camp there broke his arm on. I guess it was on the Alpine slide. It was called. And it was,
Oh, right.
Yeah,
There was an alpine slide. Those are dangerous motherfuckers.
yeah. That's not a water ride. It's actually just basically a. Imagine what's the Olympic event? The luge.
It's a luge. So you're sitting on it's a giant, long ass slide that comes down the hill. Basically, it was a way for
Like a bobsled.
ski resorts
Okay.
to make money when there's no snow. They would have all alpine slides, which are basically would go down the mountain similar to like a ski path would go, but it would twist through trees and but you had a brake on it and it had wheels and you sat there like this holding on to the middle. The middle had the brake and
you had to work the brake.
you really got moving. And people, I knew all sorts of friends from school that would, they'd take a turn too sharp and they'd fly right off that motherfucker into the woods, hit a rock, break their arms, break their
mind
legs.
you, completely unsupervised too.
Yeah.
like
No helmet.
Crazy.
nothing. And yeah, any age go down. I remember there was some sort of slide that went straight down. You sat like on a mat, and it was kind of like on they were like rollers. This was a water ride, and it would make you basically skip like a rock
Yeah.
along the water.
Yeah.
And you'd go into the water, and I don't remember if it was that or like a Tarzan swing, but I remember one of them, the water for some reason at that pool was so shockingly cold that it would like take your breath away the second it was like ice water going into
Yeah.
it. And I think I remember a story that someone had a heart attack and died from that water temperature. I don't know if that's true,
wow.
but it's and there was also a water slide that was closed. It was just a closed-in tube that was like a free fall drop, and then would go into one big loop, a loop-de-loop, and then into the water. And that was never opened when I went because the rumor was some fat guy went down that thing and got stuck at the top and drowned at the top of the hoop.
Oh my God.
Because
Yes.
the water would be backing up behind you.
Yeah, and that was that someone that wasn't the size that should have been in there died there, and that what would normally probably close a whole park just closed off that ride, that slide.
That's
And that
back
was
in
it.
the 80s, right?
This would be it would be late 80s, early 90s.
wow.
Yeah, more like
And then what's the purpose of a camp? Like, do you play baseball? Like, is it a baseball
The true
camp?
purpose of a camp is someplace the parents take their kids in the summer.
And
'Cause
not
they don't,
deal with
They
them.
don't have any daycare.
absolutely
Got it.
that is the number one reason kids go to camp.
it.
But like
It's not to enrich their lives or have them
No.
learn the outdoors.
absolutely not. No,
it's-
unless you are actually going to a legit camp that
Yeah,
is
where you
made
go
for
away
that.
and you take a sleeping bag and the whole deal.
Did you ever do a Sleepaway camp?
No, but in 5th grade, I think, maybe it was 6th grade, we camped for a weekend. We all went to a place, but there was cabins and stuff, and
Yeah.
what a fucking shit show that was. Like,
Oh.
bunch of 5th grade. I mean, it was mayhem.
Oh, I bet. Well, I went right. I did 1 month of sleepaway camp. I'm assuming you know what sleepaway camp is.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And I did it right at that age. Like, God, it had to be like, it was like 13, 14 years old. So it was right at that age where guys and girls this is where you were just starting to get together, right? And I remember I went with a couple of friends were in my bunk that like we decided to like go together. And they line you up that first time in the field where you're finding out what bunk you are, and there's the girls there, and where everyone is just looking and sizing or looking through all the choices of girls, because you have no idea what you're doing at this time, right? You know that there's girls there, and we're now interested in girls, and we don't know how to handle this, but we're going to. So it's just, and they're looking right back at us like, what are we doing? We don't know, but something's got to connect. And it was this. I remember the first night meeting the other kids in my bunk. All the talk was how important it was to get a girlfriend at camp. Getting a girlfriend was the most important thing. That's all anybody talked about. So the next day, it was like mating season in an open field. Like it was just like a mixer, in a sense that we all just came together in a field. They literally let us out into a grassy area for all us to meet each other. And it was like speed dating on crack. Like, it was just like, hey, what's up? Hey, how's it going? Like, just going from one person to the other. And it felt like we all just paired up with somebody just to have somebody. And I paired up with this girl, and suddenly, within 2 days, she was my girlfriend in this camp, which consisted, what having a girlfriend meant in sleepaway camp when you're 13 years old is that you don't see them the entire day. You see them when you're eating dinner at night, and then whatever the activity is at night, that's when you're with them. And then when it's time to go back to your bunks and the girls are going to the girls' side and the guys are going to the guys' side, everybody awkwardly makes out in the middle of the field, all around next to each other in their own little spots, standing up next to each other. Like, it was the weirdest thing. It was like that every night. Every single night was just us awkwardly making out with each other standing all next to each other in an open field that leads to two different directions to our bunks. That was summer for me.
That's why it was so important.
That was a very nice summer.
Yeah, that was a good summer. Vacations? Did you guys go on any summer vacations with family?
Vacations. Well, everybody who lived in the city of Tehran, where I come from, they would go to the northern parts of Iran that was on the, how would you say it? Like, they were on the beach of the Caspian Sea. Mm-hmm. So that was like one vacation spot that everybody went to. So yeah, we used to go there every summer, like once or twice. Sometimes during the Persian New Year, we would go there for a week or two. It's really nice up there. Like, it's very green because Iran has a very diverse climate, mm-hmm. and the greenest areas are bordering the Caspian Sea, mm-hmm. above the mountains, because there are these chains of mountains that they block the sort of like humid weather right behind them, between the mountains and the sea, the Caspian Sea. So that area is really, really green, and mm-hmm. and then there are a lot of tourists from Europe
that's where they
come over there to see. Yeah.
So it's just like a row of hotels too.
Oh, they had plenty of hotels, but the nicest hotels were all built by the Americans before the Iranian Revolution.
Gotcha.
Like, you could tell, like, this place is made by Americans.
Oh,
there was like a big difference. Like, it's larger, it's nicer.
Big set of boobs on top and hot dog stands and
exactly.
Well, like
sitting on a big pile of money.
Just the architecture, you know,
right.
Like everything. I mean, when you live I guess I'm just talking as an Iranian, but in Iran, like, anytime you see something that's made in the USA, like whether it was an old building or a car or everything, you can easily tell the difference. Because it looks better, it runs nicer, it's spacious. And so there were these hotels up there that, even though they try to like remove all of those sort of like cultural, like Western cultural aspects of it, such as boobs you mentioned, but not necessarily boobs, but like other like stuff like certain sculptures and all, but you still could say like, no, motherfuckers. Mm-hmm. This is American.
Is there drinking allowed there?
No.
Nowhere, right?
No. But it's not allowed, but everybody's drunk.
Yeah.
People like drink illegally.
Yeah.
Like, we have the highest numbers of alcoholics, I think, in the Middle East.
Wow.
And now the government has been coming into terms with that reality by accepting 12-step programs.
Oh, wow.
So,
But it's still illegal to drink there?
It's still illegal.
so there must
Well,
be
we're-
a massive bootleg business, like
It's
underground
huge.
business.
Even there are allegations that the Iranian military is now illegally or smuggling
Oh, so
alcoholic
yes.
beverages into Iran.
So the people who are supposed to be stopping it are the ones now doing it.
Allegedly.
Allegedly,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't want to lose my head the next time I go there to visit.
Right.
But that's what I've heard. But because before they used to have, okay, if you're a religious minority, like if you're Christian, which are mostly Armenians and Assyrians in Iran, or you're Jewish, you can drink if your religion gives you permission. But Muslims are not supposed to drink. But usually Muslims or like the non like Christians or non-Jewish people, they buy it from the Christians because they were allowed to make it at home. But
So-
those were homemade alcohol, homemade drinks, homemade vodka.
So it's not a nationwide law. It's more of like a law for the culture, for what your culture
No.
is.
It's a nationwide law. It's a law that's been passed by the Iranian parliament.
That says
Like
nobody
cannot.
could drink.
Nobody can drink unless you're a Christian or you're Jewish.
That's what I mean.
You know? Yes.
Yeah.
But you can do it at home. You can't come out. Or like Armenians, they have their own like clubs.
Gotcha.
Where they go, they can get. But then some of them they sell it to the non-like Armenians. But the problem is sometimes people attempted to like brew their own vodka at home, but they didn't measure the proportions correctly, and people who consume it they went blind.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that.
So to prevent that, later on, pharmacies started selling medical alcohol. But that was basically, and then for some reason they had different tastes of it, like cinnamon medical alcohol. I mean, if I have a cut on my body and I'm trying to sanitize, I don't care if it tastes like cinnamon or not. So it was clearly a message to the society, like, we know it's legal, you're not supposed to do it, but don't go buy it from some motherfucker down the street. Come and buy it from, so that you don't go blind.
Right.
Man.
Jesus.
I had, without a doubt, the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me in my life happened at a summer camp during summer at that sleepaway camp on the last week. Thank God it happened during the last week. Probably one of the last days of that month that I was going to be there.
Did you poop out of your pee-pee?
If I would have done that,
And all the kids
I
knew?
would have been a happy man.
no.
Penis
no.
in the zipper.
That sounds terrible.
No, not that. Okay.
That wasn't that. The thing that drew a lot of people to this camp, like at the time, I may have told you this story before, but I'm going to say it again. There were jet skis in this lake that they had part of this camp. They owned like maybe one or two jet skis. It was the kind that there was no seat. It's like a scooter almost. You got to like pull yourself up to your feet. You start laying on your stomach, holding on, and then you go up to your knees, and then you go up to your feet.
Those are incredibly difficult to maneuver.
Really, really difficult, right?
Yeah.
Imagine getting on a scooter for the very first time on water now with a motor. That's basically what it is. And I, at the time, was overweight, right? So I was definitely a bigger kid. And I couldn't do a pull-up. So pulling myself up to get to either the knee position was... especially get to the standing position was something I knew I couldn't do. So I went all summer without even attempting to if you had to stay online if you wanted to be this thing and do one lap around the lake.
Yeah.
If you were going to do that. Then came the last couple days of camp. They said, look, everyone's going to have an opportunity to ride this thing one more time and then you're done. You basically got like a ticket or something. It was like you hand in your ticket and that's it. You get your one lap around the lake. I thought, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do this thing. I had been watching people. I've been studying their techniques on how to get up on this thing. I get up, I get to this jet ski thing. I lay on my stomach. Now, the acceleration is kind of like a motorcycle. You know, you squeeze the thing on the handle, and it goes faster, or you let go and it just stops. The motor stops. So
Your standard throttle.
yes, exactly. This is why we have you here. I squeeze the thing while I'm pulling myself up. So this thing's hitting top speed immediately because I
you're
am
using
pulling
it to
myself up.
Oh no!
Right?
Oh, man.
To pull myself up.
I had a feeling that's where this was going to go.
Yeah. And so here I am. And here's the entire camp on this beach, this man-made beach that are waiting to do their turn, is just watching me, my laid out body just smacking the water while I'm holding on for dear life because I refuse to let go, right? I can't believe this is...
So you're full open throttle.
I'm full open throttle while my stomach and top of my thighs are smacking against the water while it's dragging me basically behind it while I'm holding onto the handles, if you could picture that.
Yeah, I can.
Goes my bathing suit.
Oh no.
Right off my legs. The camp is now watching a chubby, naked, white-assed kid bouncing off the water naked, and of course at that moment I let go and just watch the jet ski just go off into the distance without me.
Sink into the bottom and none of the
behind
other
me
kids.
somewhere is my bathing suit, and I'm now naked in the middle of the lake, far from the beach. I of course go find my bathing suit, which I eventually put on. Thank God it was floating and didn't sink. They had to send someone out on the other jet ski to get me, and I had to be brought back in front of everybody at camp, basically cheering because of the entertainment that they just experienced. Just basically thanking me for their life, this life story they'll have to tell their
when you
children.
arrived, were you like, the right move is just throw your arms up and go, yeah, I did it,
No.
But you didn't do
That's
that,
very
did you?
humiliating.
Yeah, I didn't do shit. I crashed and burned. I grabbed my towel or something. I remember I just walked right back to the bunk and just was like, I'm in here until the bus leaves to go home. But that was it. That was it.
I love it.
God damn.
I love it.
Damn.
Yeah.
I think I said this before. I think we may cut this out. Stop me if we said this in another episode.
Uh-huh.
Where when I was going up every summer, I was playing Little League, but they put me on the small field for 1 year.
Oh, it sounds familiar, but I don't know. I can't tell if you told me this as in our friendship or on the podcast.
So maybe I think we talked about it in sports. I'm pretty sure actually, but I would go back. I was big in Little League, and then in Florida, I got to the bigger field a year early. Then New York goes to the big field. So when I went back that summer, I had been playing a year on a full major league field with kids that were 3 years older than me, and now I'm going back as the oldest kid on a small field against kids 3 years younger than me.
God,
I was like fucking Roger Maris.
you're just crushing everything. I don't think you're talking.
No
about
one
that.
threw as hard as I could. No one. I mean, it was like a joke to me. I'm like, what the hell? I caught games. I was throwing people out from my knees.
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome. And then I would go back to Florida and be the worst. I would be the worst player on my team in Florida, and I'd be the best player on the team in New York.
Oh.
So when I would go back to summer, I'm like, all right, it's on. Like, I'm back to me.
Summer didn't only mean no school; it also meant you're a major league baseball player. Practically.
Means I was a true talent
Yeah.
in Little League. All the kids knew me. Here's a kid from Florida. He used to live here, but he's back, and he's fucking kicking all of our asses. And then I'd go back to Florida and ride the pine the whole
Right.
time.
What like you were talking about, baseball camp. You're talking about taking swimming lessons. Did any camps exist in Iran then or now that were like specific, skilled, focused?
Yes, right now they do.
They do now.
They have a lot of good like soccer camps. I mean, by good, I mean good enough.
Good enough, right?
It's not like they don't train like, what do you call them? Like European soccer players.
Yeah.
But I know that the volleyball camps are really good, and they have like camps now where you can enroll your children that work on their athletic skills. But soccer is like really big. Everybody wants to become a soccer player.
Right.
Even though sport number one in Iran is wrestling, but still soccer is very popular.
Right.
Things have changed drastically in the past sort of like 4 decades.
Yeah.
Because the same people who sort of like were against every Western aspect of life, they immediately became very westernized.
Interesting.
And now they're trying to reform the system, but it's somehow too little too late, but that's a different story. But as a result of that, they have introduced many secular features of like entertainment.
Right, to just focus it on.
Yeah, like swimming camps, volleyball camps, a lot of soccer camps. But then again, what my dad used to say was like some of these soccer camps became like an empirical example of my dad calling everybody a pedophile because a few incidents, not a few, like more than a few incidents of sexual assault took place at some soccer camps.
Oh, jeez.
So my dad was like, "Did I not tell you?" Like,
Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
that's all I needed you to see.
That's it. Yeah.
Now there's like Minecraft camps.
Oh, yeah.
and
Camp today.
Fortnite camps.
Yep.
And
Yep.
super specialized Lego camps.
And almost all of them today are 1 week long. And you piece together the week. You have to piece together weeks of different. That's how it is with my kids. I don't know what you do with your son. My kids, they do a week at this camp, they do a week at another camp. We have a week off. Do maybe 2 weeks if you want to do back to back, and they're all different themed. Science camp, music camp. My kids go to Italian camp because they're learning the Italian language, so that that is offered to the school, and then soccer camp or whatever. They haven't done any of the sports camps yet, but it's always different every summer, and each week feels like you're paying for a little summer vacation for them.
Yeah.
And for us. I mean, that's like, it's funny. It's like, oh, fuck. Like, this many hundreds of dollars for the week for them to go to what? What do you do at this camp? What are you doing at this camp? Yet if you turn it around and are like, how much am I willing to spend to have the kids somewhere else during that week? I'm like, a few $100, $500,
Priceless.
$600.
Priceless.
What do you want?
What do you want?
I love my kids. It's funny to know that. I love my kids. But I love them more when they come home. It's been hours. You don't want to know how many naps I took today?
In LA, it's tough though, because it's always like, what time do they need to be at camp, and what side of town is the camp on?
Oh,
because part of the
that's
thing
true.
for me, summer vacation is like, I want to sleep in at some point. Like
Right.
I had been getting up, taking them to school for the whole year.
Oh, you got to factor all those things in then. Yeah.
And like when summer comes around, like, can we take a break from me getting up?
Yeah,
like
and then
6
picking
every
up,
morning?
right? I mean, so you don't want to spend half the day
No.
picking up and dropping off. You got to. Unless if it's depending on how valuable your time is, getting like a motel room for the week near that camp. That's an option.
Funny. Do people send their children?
To terrorist camps? I heard in Pakistan, like
In Pakistan, yeah.
extremely poor families, they don't call it like terrorist camps. They say like, oh, they're going to like study Quran or religious sciences, yada yada. And then some Saudis like that, they're the ones who are pretty much promoting that in poor areas.
Yeah.
So they take these kids in and feed them, and that way, like the peasant parents or the impoverished families, they don't have to sort of like spend money feeding their children. So they go, but then they radicalize them. And then next thing you know, there's like a 9/11 situation. Well, actually, the ones who did that were not from those camps, but they come from the same type of like very wealthy Saudi families and all.
Hit it.
You good? Okay. I remember though the only growing up specialty, like 1 week long camp that I wanted to go to was space camp.
I have let me say that again. I have attended space camp.
You have been to space camp.
I spent a week. I won a week to space camp on a Nickelodeon kids game show.
That's right. You told me
in
that.
1992, Nick Arcade. I won it all. I dominated.
You lived my dream.
My partner didn't even answer one fucking question. I swept it.
Yeah.
And I won. And then, of course, my mom made me take my fucking cousin, which
Oh, you
I
didn't have
took.
to. What about the partner? You didn't just have to go with the partner in the game show?
No, she had her own. She won.
Oh, it was.
She had her own, trip for two, and I had my trip for two.
Oh, I thought it was.
And I went to space camp, and I was between 9th and 10th grade, and it was fucking awesome.
Was it?
It was awesome.
God, part of me really wanted you to say that it sucked.
No, it was great. It was
something
in
I
Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah.
They eventually opened one in Cocoa Beach, but
Right.
they were sending us up to the Alabama
That's
one.
the one I
which is
wanted to
even
go to.
better because you're farther away from everybody and you're just getting into high school. And it was It was great.
I would have gone. Do you know what Space Camp is?
No, I don't.
So Space Camp is it's like a 1 week, usually like a
Yep.
five day thing that
Yep.
I mean it's all like NASA. It's basically you live what it's like to be an astronaut. Like if you were training to be an astronaut.
That's right.
Yeah,
They
right?
have the simulate. They have everything.
Yeah.
They have the simulators. You have missions. You have lectures by rocket scientists. You did underwater simulation.
Mm-hmm.
You did everything. They took you out to the engine testing site, and you would see where the main engines are tested, and they would do mock missions. I mean, this is the most fun. They had a 6-hour mock mission where like 8 of us were all assigned. Like you had a mission control, you had the astronauts, you had the payload specialists. They like mocked up the whole thing for 6 hours. From fucking pre-launch, an hour and a half before launch, through launch, into orbit, and landing, the whole deal. And you had a mission up in space, and they would throw you problems and anomalies, right? So you'd be like the flight director, and all of a sudden, you'd have a panel light up like your oxygen is dropping in the cabin. And then you'd have to look up through the manual to solve it, and you'd communicate it, and you were wearing headsets, and it was fucking the best. And
You're slowly killing me.
I know.
I so want you to say how bad it was, and
No, it was
this is everything I ever dreamed of.
great.
Everything I ever dreamed of.
It was a lot of fun, at least at that
was-
age for me.
It was also incredibly expensive.
That's
And
right.
he won the trip, which is
won
amazing.
it.
I mean, but like I would get pamphlet. I was obsessed with calling. They knew me on their switchboard because I would call them from different payphones and be like, "Can you please send me another free pamphlet?" And they would send me free pamphlets to school, to the teachers. I wanted them to. The only way that I felt I was ever going to get to Space Camp was to get on a Nickelodeon game show, which seemed to be the only place you could win a trip to Space Camp because Double Dare was another game
Yep.
show that
Yep.
gave away that as a grand prize. Nick Arcade. And I think there was another one too. To get onto one of those shows, they got to come to your school and basically have a whole event at your school like that, and they pick the contestants from all your classmates. It's not like if I was the one who brought them in, I was not guaranteed to be in a contestant. That was a reality. I could go through all of this to get to Space Camp and watch 2 of my friends go instead and win the trip.
We had about 7 kids from our, Nickelodeon was based in Orlando later on when it's originally Canadian, but it eventually was, Universal bought it up and it was based in Orlando and filmed in Orlando. So all the game shows filmed in Orlando. So all the game shows would always come to our schools looking for contestants. And
Yeah.
a bunch of us did that.
But
yeah.
no one near me went like that. It was not happening. So, and it was also because not only did you have to pay for, if you were going to pay for it, this incredible amount of money, you had to buy plane tickets there and back. Like you had to get there
definitely.
too. And then, I mean, I had an interest in Space Camp to begin with. Then a movie called Space Camp came
That's
out,
right.
and I think Joaquin Phoenix was a kid in that. Joaquin Phoenix was the little kid in that movie. And Leah Thompson was in it, the mom from
Which
Back to the Future.
the premise is preposterous.
Oh,
first
yeah.
of all.
Yeah. But at the time, amazing.
Like when the space shuttle is on the pad, the civilians aren't allowed within 2 miles of it. Like there's a 2 mile, you can't even get into the fuck. So somehow 5 kids magically end up on an active launch space shuttle.
Yeah. No, they won. They basically were allowed them. They were in Space Camp. They allowed them to sit in the shuttle while they were testing the engines. And then, if I remember right, a little robot friend that worked at Space Camp who wanted to help the little boy really get into space created a fake problem that a malfunction or something that the people at Mission Control were like, oh shit, if we don't launch now, the thing's gonna blow up. We have to launch now to save their lives. And they launched them up into space. These kids, basically, and their teacher, I guess, or their instructor. And now they have to find a way back. And to me, like, if I had at this point fantasized going to this camp this for a week, that movie propelled me to I have to go or die. Like, there's no other alternative.
I'll tell you what you missed. Having one of the original German engineer, rocket scientist, who was in his 90s, explain rocket propulsion to a bunch of 8th, 9th, and 10th graders while they played the just newly learned penis game, which is where you slowly say the word penis louder and louder, and whoever gets caught loses. We played that. That's the amount of respect that these children were giving a man that helps develop and invent rocketeering.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
That's what happened. I remember sitting there and that happening.
God, even that sounds amazing. I wish I played the penis game at Space Game. God damn it.
Oh, that sounds like really, really interesting.
No, it was something.
On that note, folks.
You got it.
I think it's time to roll.
Cool.
Team Supreme.
Team Supreme.